20 years before it actually happened. I used to come through Richmond all the time, never would stop, because I had my aunt used to teach in D.C. She taught in D.C. up until about 3 years ago. She taught in D.C. for damn near 30 years. We used to go back and forth from D.C. and I always would come through and never would stop. But one time I was, I think it was I was getting ready to go to college. This years ago. I think I was getting ready to be a freshman at Benedict College, and I had a cousin that was getting married up in D.C. And my brothers had rolled up, but I had something I had to do, and I couldn't go with them until a day later. So I caught the bus up, and the bus stopped in Richmond. I don't know what it was, but got off the bus, and it was almost, we went to the bus station. It was almost like they had a disco up in there. I mean, there was Negroes doing everything. I always remember that. I always remember that. When I went to D.C., I stopped up in Richmond at the bus station, and it was almost like a party. People was, and I was like, but it was just people getting on buses, but it was something that was going on. But I understand what's happening spiritually. It wasn't until I came here, Sister Celia brought me down back in summer of 2004 and had a real spiritual experience. And then they come to find out that, a great deal of slave history here, Civil War history, and all of that is here. And Sister Lakshmi was telling me that the Civil War soldiers actually won the battle here. They fought and won and freed Richmond, and she was going through all this history. So it means that the stop in the bus station about 26, 27 years ago was actually a prelude to something that I was going to have to do, certain people I was going to meet at a certain time years later. And that's how you find out how things are. And in so many words, we got to stop thinking of these things as lectures. These things are actually gathering, because to be honest with you, it's not some type of seminar to help our people. Because the masses don't know nothing about this thing. The masses are almost like animals. You see what I'm saying? This is a gathering for the divine beings amongst our people that will be instrumental in our people. So in so many words, we get disenfranchised when we see black people and the foolishness going on. You know what I'm saying? Because, even talking junk about the white man don't hold no water no more. You know what I'm saying? It don't hold no water. It's almost like, say, if you feel like a hypocrite, after about 10 years talking about the society and the white man and all this, you feel like a hypocrite because the simple fact is the only person dying is us by other people. And they killed 114 black men have died in Philadelphia since January. And they said, in the state of New Jersey, said if you all don't stop the killing, you're going to have almost a passport to get into New Jersey. They're talking about papers. You're going to have papers to get into New Jersey. They said they're giving them a month for the killing to stop. And my point here is, and we know there might be some stuff that's government-induced, but the majority of this is they wouldn't be able to induce something if we didn't have black self-hatred. You understand what I'm saying? So they're only feeding off of a pathology that we have in us. So a lot of times the whole concept of the white boy, it don't hold no water no more. The key I'm trying to make here too, because I'm not coming here to be, this is not no rainbow coalition. Because we're not talking about fantasies here. But what I'm trying to say here is sometimes we get disenfranchised with the outside world. The mystery here is, and this is how the mystery goes, and I think it's the same system that has been going on for thousands of years. It is never the masses, it is only the nucleus. And so in so many words, the people in here tonight is representative of so many thousands of people, millions of people. So let's say in your life, you might know a couple of thousand people you have met, or a couple of hundred, but those particular people know a couple of hundred and a couple of hundred, and it's almost like a well. It's the same as the same worldwide well, but we're talking about a well of consciousness. So the masses don't have to transform. The only people that have to transform is the representative of the masses. It's the same concept, beautiful concept that black people started doing for economic reasons when a person dies out west and they don't want to send the whole family to the funeral, they'll send one person as a representative for the people on the East Coast. You know what I'm saying? Things like that. So it's the same concept here of the gathering of the round table. But that's more science. That whole Knights of the Round Table mythology and the Grail. If people want to study real Moorish science, you need to study the Holy Grail and the Knights of the Round Table, because they didn't have that history until the Moors came up for 700 years and gave them that history. And later on, Britain turned it into Camelot being Britain, but Camelot was supposed to be America. And that's what the whole movie Highlander, the first one, 1985, the gathering will be in America, in a land that's not even established yet. So at that particular time, they were talking about, the time of Moorish Spain, they was talking about a future America and a land that won't even be established yet. You see what I'm saying? And so the Grail myth, and there's an excellent Moorish movie they put out, I think in the fall of 2004. It's called Earthsea. Got Danny Glover in it. So what they'll do is they'll put one black man in the movie, and he represents the Moor. And this initiate has to go to a school, and the school might have all these white folks, but they are representative of the Moors. They actually put a movie out about the Moors in Europe, because it's more than just Spain. They rule all over. All these things like Turkey, anytime you hear the word the Sultans and all these new words they have, all that is nothing but Moors. You see what I'm saying? They got a whole book, this guy named Stephen Flowers, a book on ancient Turkish magic. And they're talking about magical text that was left behind in Turkey when the Moors ruled. It's ancient Sufi magic. Because the Turks and all, it's the whole Sufi and the whole, all that stuff. Sufi means woolly-haired one. The Moor. You get the book of, what's the guy named? Ernest Scott, People of the Secret. And he breaks it down. And they'll use words like the Arabs from Spain, other than saying the word Moor. You see what I'm saying? So in so many words, there is this movie called Earthsea, and in so many words, it's about the Moors in Spain. And it came out, it came out in the fall of 2004. Also, let me show you how the game is done when they want to revise history and they want to give a history to their people. A council came together. They wanted to do something on the history of initiates going into a school of learning and magic and higher spiritual laws. They'll come together as a consortium, write this particular history. They'll give it to one author. And you thinking that this, and they'll say, well, write it in a novel. And you thinking that it's this the imagination of this one person, and when it is an actual panel, and that's the way they can hide behind. See, in a way to hide history, you make it historical, then you make it pseudo-history. The pseudo-history is the real history. They'll say, well, put it in comic books, put it in movies. This is the way they do things to keep you out. So whenever you come in and you're trying to make the case of history, or make the case of something that you learned, and you got it off of TV, they can go and say, oh, that's TV. But that's exactly what they do. They have annals of history, and just libraries of history, and they put it in the comic books. And it was interesting, because I was doing a lecture in Harlem in '99, and I was telling them, I said, you know, you all need to be going to the comic book store. They got one called Forbidden Planet in New York, and I said, you know, which is right beside the Strand bookstore. I said, you need to visit both. So somebody in the audience laughed, and I said, well, it's interesting here. And I had a piece of paper out of a comic book talking about Leonard Jeffries and the Afrocentric movement in a comic book. You see what I'm saying? In a comic book. And that's why you got to go back and get the movie Unbreakable with Samuel L. Jackson and Bruce Willis. And Samuel L. Jackson said, I know that anything you want to know about life, you can find in these comic books. Actually, they reversed the role. Samuel L. Jackson was the one unbreakable in the movie, and they reversed the role, and Bruce Willis was the breakable one, but they made Bruce, it's the hero, Hollywood, they made Bruce Willis the one that was unbreakable. But if you look real close, when he first goes to see Samuel L. Jackson, Samuel L. Jackson is standing behind or sitting behind an Egyptian stela. And about like this stela that we're going to get into today, this is the stela of Uncle Nakunsu. He's standing behind an Egyptian stela. And he's his head, and this big stela is behind him. I'm like, Hollywood don't just put, this is not no product placement. This is nothing random. This is a comic book store. Why is there an Egyptian stela behind Samuel L. Jackson? He was trying to say, this is the Pharaoh. You see? So everything is everything. You got to understand that. Now, and I'm going ahead of myself. I just want to give you that. He's standing, because this is very important what we're going to talk about today when it comes to the bloodline. This is the God that set me. I'm going ahead of myself. But the key here is they will come together as a consortium to present history, to teach it to their children. We're talking about the power elite, because it's another thing too. We have to be accurate about these things. It's not all white folks that's conspiring against you. We know after 9/11 they just as dumb as we are, and they going along with the lunacy too. And this thing ain't even about no race no more. It's about a global elite. You see what I'm saying? And a lot of things I'm noticing now, even with the concept of race, it keeps us on an emotional level. And we can't think beyond that emotional level because we so programmed now to think about race. You know what I'm saying? Now, I understand there was a certain amount of consciousness and we had to retrace our steps being a historical dead people, and we had to present a bunch of stuff about oppression. You understand what I'm saying? But my point here is it can't be the basis of your learning. What about you now? You're not oppressed in a particular aspect because once your eyes is open, that means you're back in the mystery school. So it has to go beyond your emotional thing of the trauma that we had in slavery, because what happens is it blocks us from future learning. We can't connect the dots. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about in a few minutes, about connecting the dots. Because we'll throw certain things out because we think it's European and it's white because we got this trauma. And as a result, we threw out pieces of history and pieces of a connection that connects the dots. You see what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, I can say now, based on studying this stuff over and over, slavery was supposed to happen, we were supposed to end up in the West, and the white boy was supposed to be a part of our situation. If you look at this thing on a bigger level or a cosmic level, you understand what I'm saying? Other than a national level and an emotional level, I understand the aspect of culture. I talked on it for the last 14 years. But there's a bigger part that we get blocked because of the simple fact we still stuck in a continental paradigm of Africa, a cultural paradigm of our community, and all the atrocities that's happening to us on a certain level. And there's something going on a whole other level we're not missing because we can't break that box. You understand what I'm saying? We've already done that. We've already discussed the oppressed side of things. You understand what I'm saying? We did a tape yesterday on the update of the attack on melanin people, which you should also get when these tapes come out. We did a whole thing on that particular part. Don't let nobody fool you. There's still a war going on, and we understand that. But we're talking about the priest now. You are the priest. And when I say priest, I ain't talking about no preacher. I'm talking about high priest or scientists. Same thing. Scientist, the muse, the musician, and any other thing that we call in Western education these different degrees they have. That was equivalent to an Egyptian priest and 8 times more. Or you see, or an ancient priest. But the point about it, we got to get out of this continental paradigm of just Africa. You understand what I'm saying? And our relationship based on our personal history to understand whenever you can go to, give you an example of what I'm talking about. Whenever you see a picture like this of a Buddha from Cambodia, The gig is up. And this was a black man looking like Chris Rock. The gig is up. That means that your life is no more personal of a person in Richmond, Virginia is getting your head kicked in by some police officer. You have a global responsibility to have a global perspective because your people are all over the globe. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? All over the globe. Remember when Oprah Rashid said he was in Tahiti? Mm-hmm. There was a man there. He said, damn, you look just like Professor John Henry Clark. And Professor John Henry Clark. You know brothers look like this. So the point I'm trying to make is we got to expand our consciousness, you see, off of the personal level, because we don't hold no water. You know what I'm saying? All you can do is just get mad, and the only thing it's going to do is run your blood pressure up. You understand? It's not as if that anybody who's ever low pressure is going to stop in their tracks and go, oh man, I need to go and apologize to that person because he don't feel right about this. You understand what I'm saying? Going back, I say that because I'm setting up because there's a lot of things we have to get into. But going back, going back to what I'm saying here is they will take a consortium of people to explain a certain amount of history. The history, once they get it completed, they say, we want to teach our children about the history of the Moors in Spain. So what they're doing is they'll come in and hire a writer. And they say, now we're going to give you this particular information, how we want it done. And you want to write this information and put your name on the book as the author. And that's what happened with the J. Rollins person that did the Harry Potter series. The Harry Potter series was a stuff of the Europeans getting taught in Europe by the Moors, who brought all this particular stuff, this ancient text and stuff out of Kemet and from around the world for 700 years. Now, if people been in a place for 700 years, you know it's got to have a lot of history. You know what I'm saying? America is only 230 years this year. You see what I'm saying? So the point I'm trying to make here is 700 years is a lot of history. You know? Now this is one of the keys. So the Harry Potter series, which they did for young people, but just about all the adults saw it. They said we're going to do a step up, and they got this movie called Earthsea. And that's a movie you can get it right at Blockbuster now. I saw it in Walmart. It came out about 2 years ago now.
You said Earthsea?
Earthsea. It's got Danny Glover in it. And it's the history of the Moors. C. S-E-A. Earthsea. You see. And so there's things that's coming out, but you can't look at the apparent. You see what I'm saying? You can't look at the apparent. They tell stories all the time. They got a story basically about the black man's plight, your fall, and how your psychological condition. And they put it out about 4 years ago, and it's called Good Boy. It's a child's movie about a dog that came back from the star Sirius. You see Sirius in the Book of the Dead, and Sirius is in there. Even in the Holy Quran has a Sirius. And he came back and was coming back to visit some people that was down, and when he got here, he said, you all supposed to be ruling. Why are you all pets, i.e. servants? Whoa. Mm. And he said, you're supposed to be ruling. He said, I'm coming here to see the condition of you, because the greater Dane, which is the great mother, because when she came, she was a female great Dane. The greater Dane is trying to see, because we rule the whole galaxies in the universe, and we're trying to see what level of you all are. But you all, come to find out, you all used to rule, and now you pets. It's all about dogs, but if you understand, they talk about black people. He said, and they said, well, the other dog said, they said, we heard a little bit of stories about our parents being from Sirius, but we don't know about it. We forgot it. Somehow we don't know about it. And he said, well, I'm gonna raise y'all up back to rule. And he put them in meditation, and they can barely sit still because they pets. They trained a certain way. And then one of the children rolled the ball through the yard, and they saw that ball, and it was over. They broke meditation and ran after that ball. Just like us when it comes to them balls, baseball, basketball, and football. You see? And it's interesting. Go get that Superman 1, 78. When Glenn Ford is telling Christopher Reed, he said, you special and I don't know what it is, but it ain't about running no touchdowns. See what I'm saying? Not running touchdowns, because he had just come there. You see what I'm saying? In the Superman one, they get ready to do another Superman. I'm interested to see how that, I think it's coming out this summer. I'm interested to see how that is. But in so many words, because I don't want to sound preachy, but I'm just trying to show you where the research is going. The research is everywhere and it's under every rock. You see. So to piggyback off this movie, Good Boy, the Greater Dane did come back and they took the dogs up to chastise them or try to make them, change them back into higher beings or gods or whatever. And they declared, they said, well, she sent them back to Earth and say, you all are such niggas until we just gonna declare y'all a new species. But there's something metaphysical in that also, and something spiritual in that also, because that is a part of our journey to the West. Our journey to the West is we will become not only new beings psychologically and physically, but we will also become new beings genetically. And that's where we're going to go with this thing today. New beings genetically. You see. It's so far beyond our personal level. Things are happening until we still think, well, don't worry about it. We just, well, I got some of these I'm going to be showing. We got this one for sale. We got half these are the ones on the wall. They're only $5. But we got pet pictures, and I'm doing more and more research, and I'm going to go into that today. We have several pictures, and and it's getting bigger and bigger because I'm doing more research. But when I was in Cleveland, one sister said, well, why you want to sell me a Xerox picture for $5? I said, well, I paid $100 for the picture. So I figured at least you can get it for $5. I said, that's the trade-off. This is not stuff that I'm getting out of Vibe magazine or Essence or Ebony. I paid $100 for the book and then got the stuff to retrieve this stuff for us because it's research and it has energy to it. We'll go into that particular aspect. But we are new people. And that's the thing about it, and to be celebrated. Just when we think and we look, and it was interesting because I was downtown, I think this was back in 96 or 97. I was standing downtown Atlanta looking at them Negroes act the damn fool. So they come downtown, they got the MARTA station, which is our transit, and they got the main transit station right across the street from the underground, and them Negroes get down there and act the damn fool. And I was out there going, look at me, and it was a brother, he was a Muslim brother, and obviously he was a vendor. And he's seen it all. He was like, yeah, somebody just came through with green weed a few minutes ago. So he looked at me, and he must have was picking up my vibe. I was like, look at these damn fools out here acting a fool. And the brother looked at me, and I was thinking this, and he said, brother, I know where you're coming. In order to get some peace, you're going to have to go inside. And I didn't say a word, but he picked up on the vibes and he channeled. He said, you're going to have to go inside. And I said, I'm already with you, brother. Because outside of this thing is insanity. Mm-hmm. And it's not just the underclass, it's the niggas on your job. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about people with PhDs, master's degrees, and you go, I can't believe this Negro just did this. It might just be something they said, and you say, man, this is so irrational. You see, because we don't want to exclude the upper mobile from this
insanity.
This black pathology and this insanity. It's all around us. You see what I'm saying? It's all around us. And white folks got it too. It's the same thing. They just hide behind policy. It's policy. I'm like, man, you just got to use your brains, man. Come on, man. No, it's policy. I ain't got to explain nothing. It's policy. Oh, so you hide behind policy. You see what I'm saying? So that's that institutionalized racism and stuff. You see what I'm saying? They're always going to come up looking good. Just like they say about the French. Can say shit and it's going to look good. It's going to sound good. You see what I'm saying? They make mistakes every day in the corporate world. Lose millions of dollars. You see what I'm saying? But they have got the immunity built up as far as the amount of money they've got. They're oh, what the heck? Just a bad hour for us. But us, you go in the black community, we make the same mistakes. You go, this is a nigger business. Hate nigger business. And you don't understand that the same nigger business is happening in the white community, but they got so much money. When I was at Benedict College, because it was an interest, because he went to University of South Carolina, and he was there around the same time I was at Benedict, and I just met him in 2003, 2004. But he was there. It's how things hook up in Epperson. I mean, it's about a 20-minute walk from Benedict to University of South Carolina. And as a matter of fact, we used to party. And as a matter of fact, I remember some of the parties when we talked about it. I was at the parties when he was at the parties. You see what I'm saying? Dr. Blind. And, but if they knock a sink off the wall at Benedict, it might be, I think there was a sink knocked off the wall at Benedict from 1970. And when I got there in 1980, it was still off the wall. But at the University of South Carolina, they knocked them, and them white folks I know. You want to see some pathology? When they get drunk, it's on.
Absolutely.
So don't think, we niggas, we don't know how to. When them white boys get drunk, it's on. And I asked one white guy, I said, because I used to work at Peach's Records, which is near University of South. I said, why did you come to University of South Carolina? He said, great party school. Because I know we used to go and party there. And when they get drunk, they knock the sink off the wall. You see what I'm saying? Break out a window, it's going to be replaced Monday morning. You understand what I'm saying? So don't think that the law, what we call black pathology, is only Murphy's Law. It can go wrong, it will, and it does go wrong for white folks too, but they just got enough money. You understand what I'm saying? To cover it so they always look good. You know yourself, you work in TV, they be fucking up all the time.
All the time.
All the time. Used to work, you know, they got dead air, they got all kinds of things and stuff, you know, but it's just like the movie, what's the movie? Wag the Dog. He said, piece of cake, this is nothing. He said, piece of cake, we can fix this. I can fix that. You understand what I'm saying? Now, I don't know where I was going, but yes, that's the spirit coming in. But the point about it here is, I was looking at that pathology, and I'm like, out there on the street, and the guy said, you got to go inside. We're doing so many words right now. I think that we are being short-circuited because we are so disenfranchised about ignorance that we see every day. But guess what? Black people are created with their ignorance. If they say something that's unbelievable this week, somebody gonna top it the next week, and it's forever, going on forever and ever. You know what I'm saying? Somebody gonna top it. So you gotta understand the science on that, and understand what we're dealing with right now is, these are not, you come into lectures for motivational speaking. This is no Les Brown. You are actually convening on your own. It's like a conference, it's like a gathering, because you are the people that's already up to speed. You are the priest. And in this particular case, you are the gods, because that's what we're talking about here when we're talking about the DNA. You see what I'm saying? So I'm going to pour libation so we can do this thing. I'm going to do a little short libation to a few entities. And it's very key now, but one thing is key. And this is the main thing. And if you tap into this, all your troubles will be free. If you can, because I do know there's a movie called Renegade. It's a movie, it was where the Matrix was supposed to go. You know, the third movie dropped the ball. The hero or the Heru or the Christ don't supposed to die. You see what I'm saying? Christ is supposed to illuminate the people. Because the Christ is only representative of the people's soul. All of them go to another level, but they dropped the ball on this. They killed his woman. You know what I'm saying? He died and all this kind of stuff here. And it goes to show that they said that maybe the black girl did write the first movie because they didn't know what to do by the time they got to the third one. You see what I'm saying? Just add more karate, more kung fu. Add more. The third movie, the war scene, lasted damn near 20 minutes. I said, we get it. We get it. Where's the philosophy? What do I learn from this? They dropped the ball, but there's a movie called Renegade. All-star cast, Ernest Borgnine. They got this old person to come out and get in the movie. Yaman Hunt Sue, bunch of people. That girl Juliette Lewis, and they got, I think, some British actor. Anytime the British come, that's the superior part. You get Star Wars and see who the British was, that's the superior part. But anyway, the movie is about a battle between one guy, a young guy, and this other guy that's his nemesis, like the Horus and Set, Osiris and Set. You see what I'm saying? Always the foe. But in order to fight their problems out of the good versus evil, the Native Americans say, no, we need to go to another dimension to make it possible for you all to sort it out, because the physical in this particular realm is too much turmoil. So they gave them some kind of smoke, peyote mushroom, or whatever it was they gave them. They started seeing snakes, and the next thing they was in another world. And they sorted the thing out. And the hero, after he came out of what he was supposed to come out of, he had to go, after he was superior, and he came out of what he had to come out of, he had to go back into the womb of the woman. So Juliette Lewis jumped in the water and opened up her legs, and he swam towards her, and that was the end of the movie. Saying that in so many words, it has to go back to, there's a whole realm, and I talked about it in the Moorish science. There's a realm in the Grail mythology of something called the Mabinogion, and Mabinogion is this realm ruled by the goddesses and the priestess. And no man can get in there, not unless he sheds the severe form of the ego and the severe form of whatever, what the embodiment of what makes us trapped down here in this physical based on the maleness. He has to become more like woman. It's not necessarily in the sexual aspect, or it is in the particular aspect of, and this is one that the woman has to also, he has to become less judgmental. It's one of the keys. That's one of the things that's stopping, we're talking DNA. And one of the things that's stopping the DNA is judgmental, and you got to become more like a child. Last time you was happy, it didn't take a lot of money to make you happy. It just took whatever situation in the environment you was in. You see what I'm saying? It took less things to make you happy. In so many words, there's this realm of the goddess, and you have to go to that particular realm. And when you go to that particular realm, you get freed. So in so many words, what we're talking about there, let me show you what I'm talking about. Here's a book coming from Oxford. Top-notch stuff. There's scholars from around the world. And this book came out, y'all all right?
Yeah. I'm
going to pour the libations, but I just want to say this while I'm on the road. This came out in 2000, which is the year before the millennium, because the millennium was 2001, but either way it's the same thing. Some say 2000, some say 2001, but it's interesting. These things come out, they're not just books for sale. And it says, Goddess Who Rule. Goddess Who Rule. Edited by Elizabeth Bernard and Beverly Moon. It's coming from England. And what they're saying here is the realm that we got to focus on is we got to get back to the goddess realm. And I know what I'm talking about because the research, this stuff, I've been on this thing a while, but it's working. It's starting to work. Which I'm saying here is in my life, there's goddesses that show up. That's why you see half these pictures up here. They'll show up, and all of a sudden my situation will change, and I'm at a whole nother level. You see what I'm saying? So I know we are trained to look at everything based on social, economic, and the mundane level, and we say, I don't understand how this can be. But trust me on this one. Everything is changing. The terrain is changing. And what is up has to go down, and what has been suppressed, you see what I'm saying, has to come, but it has to be something new. I'm going ahead of myself. So there's a reason why they wrote this book, Goddess Who Ruled, because the scholars or whatever were saying, no, we got to find out what is this particular stuff that we have excluded in this male-dominated Western culture. And they got goddesses from Lakshmi to Oshun. They made sure that we gonna put the Africans up in here. They got Heru, Egypt. They got Tara from Tibet. They got some Japanese. They said, we got to do this in some serious stuff. So it's a book called Goddess Who Ruled. And it's a concept. You see what I'm saying? And I'm going to give you the version of the concept based on, it's ironic like I'll find the book, but I'm going through this stuff in the research. You see what I'm saying? And I had a book on the shelf. I had a book about 4 years, but I'm going through this stuff in the research, and it all lines up. You see what I'm saying? You see, I haven't read half the book, but I'm saying, because I don't want to say that my stuff is coming from this, because I haven't read half the book, but what I did read, you see what I'm saying, it's saying there is a seriousness on this particular part, as far as goddesses who rule, and in so many words, we're not talking about a physical aspect, it's talking about a mind, you see what I'm saying, a state of mind and a concept. We're going to get into all that today when we go into the, because we got a lot of pictures and stuff, and a state of mind and concept. So we're going to get into all that in a few minutes. So I'm going to pour libations because, like, give you an example. The goddess Kuan Yin showed up in July, in November. And so she said, I want to deal with you on some things. So I said, well, first of all, I said, I got to invoke you. So I'll go in and try to find a picture of her. And I said, but I don't want the modern pictures where they got, I want to get one of the ancient ones. And I found one of the ancient ones in the last page in the book, in an old book that I went to Chicago to pay $40 or $50 for a paperback book, and I walked outside of the store and the binding just fell off. But the pictures of what I needed was what I needed. I needed pictures not of what the later cultures draw these stylized versions that look more like their culture. I want to get the original indigenous stuff. You see what I'm saying? Of that. They're going to fall, but don't worry about it. Now, so she showed up, and then she showed up again in March, and she said, now, I'm the goddess of compassion. And there's thousands of Asians that worship her. We can trace her all the way back to Africa. There's thousands of Asians. She said, now imagine, and obviously now, it's not that much religious. They worship her, even the Japanese I want to learn Japanese because I want to learn the business. The Japanese use her in business, you see what I'm saying, to make sure their stuff go right. And that's why you got Toyotas and Lexus and all this type of stuff been rolling here the last 26 years in mass. You understand what I'm saying? So this stuff is real, but she said, imagine if I got to divide this stuff with 1 billion people almost, because you got China, Thailand, Korea, Japan. Imagine what would happen if I just come to a few black people. Not the Christians that don't want to believe in nothing but what some preacher tell them. What about if there's some people that take the step to just get to know me? Can you imagine what power I can do? In so many words, what they're saying here is that these energies, these frequencies, these intelligence saying, there's a group of people that DNA is changing. And these are the people that we need to connect with. So there's a connection with the goddesses on the wall that you're seeing. And what I'm going to be showing. And our DNA, it's almost like they look down on the earth and they don't see nothing. It's total darkness. And they see these light beings in the diaspora. parts of the United States, parts of the UK, you know what I'm saying? Because they, you know, they got some uprisings and stuff that's going on. The Caribbean, you see what I'm saying? Parts of Africa, and you know, and then they see a few other ones around, spread out in India, Asia, whatever. Parts of Europe. And they said, imagine if these particular ones that's got this light can just deal with me on a certain level. Their situations can change for the better. Because the real mystery here is they are inside of us. It's in the DNA. The DNA is the gods. You see what I'm saying? It's not up in the sky. You see, it's not even in the pictures. The picture is a template. It's like a hieroglyph. You focus on it and it registers. So if I focus on this picture, it registers. Let's say I take this goddess, Parvati, or Uma. She's sitting there with a leg, one leg up and one leg down. And I focus on her. That means that there's some type of DNA molecule inside of me that's one of millions that's inside of my body, and I've already activated it. You see what I'm saying? So it's like you get the keyboard and you type up your name on the computer, and then something comes up on the screen. Well, it's the same thing that we're dealing with here because it's all inside of us. I'm going ahead of myself. Y'all all right?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So we're going to go into this particular science. In a few minutes. Like I said, we got all these things for sale for $5. They got real power to them, and it's taking on, and it's really taking on a mind of its own. I mean, it's real power. What will happen is if you tap in, a goddess will show up or a god will show up and say, "Hey, get a picture of me. I want to help somebody. I want to help you." And I'm saying, you know, and it works this way. I'm giving you something on an advanced level of why they would have multiple statues in Kemetic, why they would have multiple statues in India, multiple statues that later on, when you have what is called a fascism, says idolatry. You see what I'm saying? Idolatry means you done got rid of your magical system. You done got rid of the scientific aspect, and you going on blind faith. Which means I'll be led by any fool that can figure out that they can rule over me. You see? Now, let's pour libations. There's some Gordon's gin. And all, you know, we're going to pour libations. I got it down to a science. I'm telling you, I got this thing down to a science that I can have something good go wrong on me. I can hurt myself on a certain thing. Instead of going and getting some medicine from the doctor or some holistic stuff, I got it down to a science. I can get the gin, get it in the body, and let the spirits do the work. And I'm injured for about a couple of minutes because they can do this stuff overnight. That's the science. We want to ask this question: how did our people survive thousands of years without somebody ripping you open and taking out all your blood vessels and your heart and all this kind of stuff here? They didn't have to deal with certain things. The worst thing, the last resort was surgery. You see what I'm saying? And that's for immediate help. If they can invoke some entities, they can do this stuff over. They can do this stuff in a matter of minutes. It's like one of the stories of the guy in India, a little boy, one of the yoga masters sent the little boy out to go to the store to get something for him, and the boy got ran over by a carriage and got killed. And about 2 days later, everybody was at the funeral mourning because they were getting ready to, they burned the body over there. And the yogi came up and snatched the little boy off of the funeral pyre, and all the stuff that was getting ready to snatch him up and say, "Didn't I tell you to come back to the store and I'll give you my stuff?" And snatch the little boy up. You see what I'm saying? These are true stories. But the entity put the spirit back into the body. But we lost all of this because we've been convinced, you see what I'm saying, that these things can't happen. You see. So in dealing with this, when we're dealing with this DNA and dealing with this stuff, it works. It works if you can if you can convince yourself. And that's what we're going to say about you got to become like a little child. Because you believed in certain things before you became an adult. And that killed us. You see what I'm saying? And if, you know, and because before you let the left brain world of Western education tell you things ain't possible, not unless it's our way. You see. And that's the thing. We left brain prisoners, and we got to break from that prison. You see. And I break from that prison. So let me pull the Kuan Yin. Y'all ready? We're gonna do this. I did okay. Kuan Yin. I shall get the power. I guess I'll go off the wall. Sarasvati. I say Lakshmi. I say Ganesh. I say Setman. I say Osa. I say Papa Prox. I say Heru. I say Pan. I say I'm off the country. I'll explain what this is. I say Malektas. I say Terra. I say let's see, Urzuli. I say Vishnu. I say Shiva. I say Rudra. I say Uma. I say Kali. I say the All God. I say Best. I say, now give me some powerful Ashe so we can get some energy up in here. It's all based on the frequencies. Everything is frequencies. You see what I'm saying? Okay. Otincha. Asia. Sheola. Shumala. Kumu. Kala. Rapido. Butchers. Jadu. Mayat. Sekmet. Sashet. Selket. Bass. Bess. Vesh. Kimu. Keva. Shakma. Bama. Tippa. Nasa. Ha. Ganshed. Vim. Allah. Amin Winton Sa. Amin Ra. Atum Ra. Head Ru. Let's see if there's any more I want to get. Lilith. Layla. Lilith. Ishtar. Monu. Nobu. Mana. Titi. Joker. Inati. Kenana. Kama. Let's see. Lolita. Don't worry about it. We just the picture's falling, but don't worry about that. I guess that's a good little bit of energy right now for what we want to deal with.
Hey, Bob.
Okay, huh?
Hey, man,
Huh?
how much proof was that liquor, man? I smell that stuff way back here, man.
Oh, you do? Well, that's good. That's the spirit you smell.
Yeah.
That's the spirit you smell, and that's good. That's only 80 proof, which most stuff is. You see, and it's interesting because the 151 really gets stuff going. You see, it's interesting how you've been convinced that you got to go by the means of what everything they tell you scientifically out here, by the means of even when it comes to warfare, even when it comes to protection. You know what I'm saying? You go and buy all these big ass guns and stuff like that now, and sometimes you don't need nothing but a statue. It's the same thing like they said, if a woman wears purple, she'll never get mugged.
Mm-hmm.
You see, because we're dealing with certain things that never get raped. Because we're dealing with certain things that is dealing with certain things in the atmosphere. You know. But this is our science. This is our science. And if you don't think so, all you got to do is look at white folks. Get with what they into, because white folks is all into this.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? And what? 100 years ago, 200 years ago, we were into this stuff, and they call it paganism and whatever. And they were all Victorian and snob, you know what I'm saying, and doing bloodletting. You got to let out your blood. You got bad blood in you. You got to let it out if you want to get well. And doing all this crazy stuff. You see what I'm saying? Now, they are into all the stuff spiritual. And we are into nothing but religion. You understand what I'm saying? You see, so it's interesting. So, let me get my notes so we can go into this stuff, because we got a lot to cover. We got a lot to cover. All right, y'all all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Lot to cover. Let's see. A couple of things. There's a good book out that's it's interesting. It's called Armageddon Now. It's called Armageddon Now. The End of the World A to Z by Jim Willis and Barbara Willis. And in this particular book, it was interesting because I saw the book in Borders bookstore, and I passed it up the first day, and I went back and I grabbed it off the wall, and I was talking to somebody in the store, and I looked, and the page opened up to Marcus Garvey. And I said, oh man, I got to get this. Open up to Marcus Garvey. So I knew then, because it's talking about not only they did Armageddon, but they just did it from a Christian perspective. This guy teaches comparative religion. They did it to stuff around the world. So they got the Buddhist view of the end times, they got the Hindu view of the end times, and yes, they have a lot of the decoding of the book of Revelation, which you know, the book of Revelation wasn't copied from no John or Patmos or they got you get Richard Barron's book, no, J.R. Birlin. Don't ask me how to spell Birlin. J.R. called Parallel Myths. You only need to know the name of the author, one of the two. Parallel Myth. I had heard that Jeremiah in Natural Genesis, his volumes had said that the book of Revelation was shamefully copied from the Persian book of Revelation. Now, I didn't know until, and I read that, and I didn't know until I got the Parallel Myths by J.R. Birlin, that they almost took it verbatim. And it's the Persian one that existed hundreds of years before the one that ended up in the Bible. And then you got that book of 101 Myths of the Bible by Gary Greenberg. Gotta get that book.
Yeah.
Because in there he shows you the text from the Kemetic text, the Egyptian text, where half the stuff in the Bible comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, 101, and he was on Tony Brown's Journal, and he's a big-time Jew that's being ostracized by the Jewish community because he's telling the truth. Mm-hmm. And Tony Brown said, man, you got big letters behind your name. But he wrote a book called The Moses Mystery a couple of years before that, saying, you know, that whole Moses, Exodus stuff wasn't nothing but a Kemetic drama, wasn't no slaves in no Egypt and that whole thing. You know, that's the same guy, Gary Greenberg, his book, The Moses Mystery. And then he has another one called, the new one, came out about five years ago, 101 Myths of the Bible, Gary Greenberg. But it was interesting in this particular book by Jim Willis and Barbara Willis, because they got the prophecy. Remember now, Marcus Garvey said, look for me in a whirlwind. And then we have Katrina. And they're saying this year they're going to have more. Whatever it was for Katrina, they say they're going to have some. They're saying that they're predicting it's going to be worse. You see what I'm saying? But we all know, one thing that Katrina didn't do, it didn't hit New Orleans. Remember New Orleans weathered the storm? That Monday it hit Mississippi and Alabama head on. You see what I'm saying? And they blew up the whole levees and the whole 9 yards. Even Farrakhan said that hit that, one of the chemists, one of the guys that was working on the whole levees, it came back to him and said that he took some of the rocks and put them in his pocket, in his diving suit, and then went to the lab and it had explosives in it. You see, and then every person that testified before Congress, so they had it on C-SPAN, all of them said they heard a big explosion. So you know what that whole thing is. But look for me in the whirlwind. That's what he talked about. And they got prophets and the Ethiopian prophecies and stuff like that in this particular book. They even got Geronimo. So this is some serious business. You see, this is Ivy League white boys and stuff. And he's a preacher, but he also teaches comparative religion. And this is an excellent stuff in here, and it's an excellent book for $24. It's Armageddon Now. And it's interesting. Now, I say that to say, when I first came in, I said that we are the ones to try this. Get in a book on ancient mythology and read some of these stories and see don't these stories line up to be you. You ever read a story and you go, damn, this is my life? You're going to find out that sooner or later that everybody in here, when you read them ancient tales, they were talking about a people now, and this stuff is going on now, and you are the doggone participants in the role. This stuff is just do what I say. Get any book on ancient mythology and read it, and you'll find out that you are a part of that. The point I'm trying to make here is, and it's to the point where it's now you can't, and I'm going to tell you something. No matter how much, you can't throw out no books. Not even the Bible. You got, all of them are fragments of a greater whole. You see what I'm saying? So at this particular time, and I say that to say this. They just released, the British government just released prophecies of Bob Marley. See, we don't think we nothing. But the whole time, you know, he was in the UK. Because he had to go to the UK because the reggae really caught on when he visited here in 1980, right before he died in 81. That's when he broke through America. But most of the 70s was trying to break through America. He had to go to Europe. You see what I'm saying? When he was in Europe,